would happen if you invested just $10,000 into the absolute GOAT of covered call style ETFs? We're talking about JEPQ, the JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF. How much would you earn in dividends today, and what would happen if you just reinvest those dividends over time? Well, stay tuned because we're going to go over what might be one of the best income-focused covered call style ETFs across the entire market, JEPQ. I'm sure you've heard about it or already hold on to it, and I'm going to share with you the math and the numbers, and I promise you they're going to blow your mind. So make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now, before we get into this one, I wanted to make it very clear that I personally am no stranger to JEPQ. I'm a huge fan of it and currently have around 510 shares of it across my portfolios with an average cost basis of around $46 and some change. Now, JEPQ is up significantly since I started buying it, which is amazing. But on top of that, my yield on cost is also up because I bought it so cheap, and JEPQ across all my portfolios pays me anywhere from $200 to $300 in dividends on a monthly basis. Now, even though I personally spent a little bit more than $10,000 to build up my position of around 500 shares of JEPQ, I want to make a video and actually explore, go through the numbers, and see what a $10,000 one-time investment into JEPQ could turn into. But to go back for a second, what is JEPQ for those of you guys that might not know? This ETF is a covered call style ETF. It says seeking consistent premium income with lower volatility. It says the JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF seeks to deliver monthly distributable income and Nasdaq 100 exposure, but with less volatility. It says expertise lead manager Hamilton Reiner has over 3 decades of experience investing in equities and equity derivatives. It then says portfolio. Underlying equity portfolio employs an applied data science approach to fundamental research and portfolio construction. But with that disciplined options overlay, implements written out the money Nasdaq 100 index call options that seek to generate distributable monthly income. Now, if it sounds like I'm speaking a different language to you guys, you probably just aren't all that familiar with covered calls, and I promise you it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. But JEPQ basically utilizes a very simple covered call strategy, and at least since the inception of this fund, it has done very, very well. Now, some more important facts about JEPQ, I suppose. The expense ratio is 0.35%. Now, before you say, wow, that seems expensive, that's much more than maybe something like SCHD or VU, keep in mind this ETF is a bit more complex, so you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get exposure to it. Now, next up, looking at JEPQ's performance since inception, this ETF has been trading between 2 and 3 years now, and I personally started buying shares of it a while back right when it came out, and if I could go back in time, I definitely would have grabbed more shares of JEPQ if I could. But this income-focused covered call style ETF is up 20+% in the 1 year. Year to date, it's up around 11.3%, which is significant because these sort of ETFs are mostly out there to generate income. Now, in the max time frame, JEPQ is up around 12-13%, which isn't anything crazy, but keep in mind this ETF pays an 8%, 10%, 12% yield, depending on which time frame you're looking at. Now, speaking of dividends, this is probably one of the main reasons you and I bought into JEPQ originally. The last few months with JEPQ have been amazing. We're looking at 55 or 56 cent payouts, but during times when there's less volatility, JEPQ and along with other covered call style ETFs that sort of rely on option premiums and volatility to pay out a good amount are not going to be able to pay out as much sometimes if volatility is lower. But as of recently, the payouts have been pretty good, giving JEPQ anywhere from around a 10 to 12% trailing 12-month dividend yield. Now, looking at JEPQ's performance since inception, this gives us a better idea of how this ETF really has performed. It opened up way back in the day in the low 50s. Right now, it's trading in the $55 range, which means JEPQ is up around 39.34% if we were to be reinvesting the dividends along the way. Now, even without that, JEPQ is still up around 31-32%, which is not bad whatsoever. And this is especially for what I sort of touched on. A lot of investors, including myself, bought into JEPI or JEPQ, any of these sort of income-focused ETFs, not necessarily to make a massive total return, but to get consistent income on a monthly basis, to use for things like reinvest into more stocks or ETFs, or maybe even do what I'm going to do in the future, hopefully, use these dividend payouts to pay for bills and other things. So overall, at least so far, JEPQ has delivered on both aspects of growing an ETF price at least a little bit or a lot, depending on where you bought into it, but also this ETF has paid massive dividends, some bigger than others over the past 2 or so years. But the real question still remains, what could a one-time $10,000 investment into something like JEPQ earn an investor as far as dividends go? And if an investor was to hold onto those shares and reinvest those shares into more shares of JEPQ, what could this whole thing turn into? So first things first, with JEPQ currently trading around where it is, an investor with a $10,000 budget could buy around 180 or 182 shares of JEPQ, depending on where it's at. Now, because JEPQ paid around 55 cents last month per share, this means that based off of that, this investor could earn around $100 right off the bat with a $10,000 investment into the ETF. Now, that's not bad whatsoever, considering once again this ETF has grown over time, and considering you would need to invest so much more into something like SPY or VOO or SCHD to achieve that sort of income. Now, I'm not for a second trying to compare JEPQ to the SPY or VOO, etc. I'm just saying based off of income, it's going to take a lot more invested compared to JEPQ. But now it's time to head over to the dividend calculator and actually type in all of JEPQ's stats, a $10,000 initial principal, $1,200 on top of that contributed per year. We could of course also contribute absolutely nothing from there or a lot more, but for this video's example, we're going to use a $1,200 annual contribution on top of that. A 3% expected annual share price appreciation, expected annual dividend amount increase 0, 11% initial annual dividend yield. Again, these numbers are all estimated. I definitely implore all of you guys to mess around with some of these free calculators. So the numbers are in and it's not really that bad whatsoever. You're number one with a $10,000 investment. You're going to be earning around $1,100 or so in dividends. And if you were to reinvest those dividends back into more shares of JEPQ, by year number two, you're at around $1,400. Now remember, these numbers are not going to be necessarily insane because we're talking about an initial $10,000 investment with reinvesting dividends and $1,200 or $100 more per month from there. So it's not like this is going to turn into a multi-million-dollar portfolio overnight, but as you can see here, relatively speaking, these numbers get pretty big pretty quick. By 10 years in, we're up to $44,000 and almost $4,000 per year in dividends. By year number 15, almost $80K and almost $6,000 per year in dividends. Now by 20 years in, just with that $10,000 initial investment, you're up to almost $8,300 per month in dividends and over $128,000 of principal. Now by 30 years down the road, and again, these numbers are all just estimated, we're just going off of some basic estimations here. We would end this at around $300,000 with around $13,000 plus per year in dividends. Now for me personally, in my long-term portfolio, I'm currently not dripping my dividends that JEPQ pays me on a monthly basis into more shares of it specifically, but instead I'm using those massive dividends, relatively speaking, from just the 500 or so shares that I have, and I'm buying whatever's on sale, whether it's stocks or ETFs, and I'm just continuing to build my portfolio. But with JEPQ's massive dividends, at least since inception for my portfolio, this one single ETF has really helped my portfolio generate a lot more cash flow than it would have otherwise. So now that we went through what a $10,000 initial investment into JEPQ could potentially turn into later on down the future, and we also went through and I shared with you guys why I think JEPQ might be one of the best, highest quality dividend growth style income focused ETFs across the entire market, I lastly, most importantly, want to hear from you guys down below. Do you personally hold any JEPQ as of now across your portfolio? Let us know yes or no in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.